Okay, so you just made some hand-ripped noodles. You followed the Biang Biang Noodle recipe from this one awesome YouTube channel you found. But here's the thing. Biang Biang noodles are more than just the noodles themselves. If you go to noodle shops in Xi'an, you'll find that the noodles can be topped with a number of different things. Choose what you want and mix it all up. So we wanted to show you some of those toppings today. And while these are absolutely classic for Biang Biang noodles, you can obviously use these toppings for pretty much whatever noodle dish you want to whip up. You could use one topping, two, them all, really whatever you feel like. So then the first topping we'll show you is braised pork or Saozi, which is probably one of the most classic. Then we'll do a tomato and egg topping, and we'll be going over the saucier stewed sort. After that, some quickly blanched Chinese chives, which you'll often see together with these other toppings. And lastly, what was the most requested topping in the comments from our last video, Cumin lamb. But before we do anything, let's just get something out of the way at first. If you stumbled into a noodle shop in Xi'an, you're probably not going to find Cumin lamb. See, Biang Biang noodles were first popularized in the West by a small eatery in Queens called Xi'an Famous Foods, and their signature topping's Cumin lamb. Now, I want to emphasize that there's nothing inauthentic about that. A lot of noodle shops in Xi'an have their own house toppings. But we've never been to a Xi'an Famous Foods, so this definitely presented a problem, because here at least, cumin is primarily used with fried or roasted lamb. The only braised lamb dish that we could think of that used cumin is a Xinjiang dish called Nangbaorou. So to crack this nut, we got a bit creative and adapted Nangbaorou to work as a noodle topping. So if you came here looking for a Xi'an Famous Foods copycat recipe, sorry to disappoint. So first up, braised pork. For this topping, you'll want either the belly or the ham cut, 500 grams worth. We're using the latter because it has a really clear separation of lean and fat, but pork belly is actually a bit more traditional. So separate the lean from the fat and cut both into cubes. Now we should say that we actually cut the lean a little bit too thick here. These were about 1-inch cubes, but really try to aim for 1 to 2 centimeters instead. Now we'll be braising that pork primarily with soy sauce and vinegar. But besides that, we'll also be using some spices, which was 1 cinnamon stick, 2 star anise, and 1 dry bay leaf, and for aromatics, 2 cloves of crushed garlic, and 2 inch-sized pieces of datsong or Welsh onion. If you've got sourcing issues on the Welsh onion front, feel free to swap for the white portion of a couple scallions instead. So now step 1 to this, and most Chinese braises for that matter, blanching the pork. So toss that in a pot of boiling water and let it simmer for about 2 minutes, then take it out. This mellows the so-called shan wei of the pork and it'll give your braise a cleaner flavor. So now, in a dry wok over a medium-low flame, drop in the pork fat and start to render out the lard. Fry that for about 3 minutes until the fat's slightly shrank and browned and you have a good pool of oil to fry with. Then toss in your lean and fry those together for another 3 minutes or so, and once everything's good and browned, add in your aromatics. Fry that for about a minute, then go in with your spices. Fry for another minute or so, then swirl in 1 tablespoon of liaojiu, a.k.a. Shaoxing wine, over your spatula and around the sides of the wok. Then, after that, go in with 4 tablespoons of light soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of dark Chinese vinegar, and finally, 1 cup of hot boiled water. Now, because we already annihilated a bit of our wok seasoning from testing last week's Guizhou braised laziji, we'll be good and transfer that all over to a clay pot, and you could really use whatever vessel you feel like. So then just get that all up to a boil, then turn your flame to the lowest heat your stove will go, cover, and let that cook for 45 minutes. After that time, season with a 1/4 teaspoon salt and a sprinkle of MSG, quick mix, and take out any spices that you don't want people to be munching on. Thicken with a slurry of a teaspoon of cornstarch mixed with a tablespoon of water, and that's it. Next up, tomato and eggs. Now there's a couple different ways to do this, but we'll be doing a saucier sort, actually called stewed tomato and eggs. See, full disclosure here, neither me nor Steph actually enjoy that tomato and egg stir fry that seems to be like everybody else's favorite. We even bonded over that on our very first date, which is why you haven't seen a recipe from us. Stewed tomato and eggs is a bit more up our alley. It's basically a tomato and egg for people that don't like tomato and egg. So besides our 2 tomatoes, we'll be cooking that with an egg, of course, and 3 cloves of smashed garlic together with an inch of smashed ginger. So now, one of the things that we don't really enjoy about that tomato and egg stir fry is the inclusion of tomato skin. So we first gave the tomato a quick blanch and peeled it. For stewed tomato and egg, some people do this, some don't, it's up to you. Either way, cut open your tomato and give it a dice. For that tomato and egg stir fry, the tomatoes generally cut into wedges, but we'll want these to break down for the sauce, so a dice is perfect. Now to prep the egg. Just add in about an 1/8 teaspoon salt and a similar amount of white pepper powder and beat well until no stray strands of egg white remain. So we'll be frying the egg first. So to a pan, toss in about 3 tablespoons of oil, and over a high flame, heat that up until it can bubble around a pair of chopsticks. Then drop in your egg, shut off the heat, and it should puff up in a really satisfying way. Then just remove and reserve, and with the flame on medium, toss in the garlic and the ginger. Fry until fragrant, about 30 seconds, then drop in the diced tomato and let that bubble away. Quick note that some people add water here and finish this all with a bit of a slurry, but we preferred this straight up. After about 5 or 6 minutes, the tomato should be mostly broken down, so remove the garlic and the ginger, season with a 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon sugar, and optionally a sprinkle of MSG, and add back in the egg. Quick mix, top with a drizzle of toasted sesame oil, and the stewed tomato and egg topping is done. Okay, so jiucai Chinese chives. There's really not much to this topping, so I'll try to keep things brief. Remove the very bottom portion of your chives, cut down into about 1 centimeter slices, and drop that in some boiling water. Quick 1-minute blanch, remove, and that's it. Last up, cumin lamb. Here we're using 500 grams of lamb leg, then dicing that into about 1-inch cubes. Now if you're making a proper Nangbaorou, you would cut your lamb into much larger pieces. But with noodle toppings, you do want something that'll incorporate better. Note that you can basically turn any braise into a noodle topping in the same way. Just cut things smaller and shorten the cooking time accordingly. We'll also be slicing out our lamb fat and rendering out separately. Note that this is totally our own approach here. Also feel free to just toss everything together. So besides our lamb, we'll also be cooking this together with one Xinjiang xianjiao, known abroad as Kashmiri chili. These are great because they're relatively mild and have a great color. So something like a Korean red might work too. Just slice it into about 1/2 centimeter pieces and reconstitute with hot boiled water, letting it soak for at least a half an hour. Then for the spices, we've also got 2 teaspoons of the titular cumin, 1 dried bay leaf, 1 cinnamon stick, 1 star anise, and 1 caoguo, Chinese black cardamom, and feel free to skip that if you can't find it. Then for aromatics, we've also got 2 cloves of smashed garlic, 2 inches of smashed ginger, and 2 sections of that dacong, a.k.a. Welsh onion, and again, you can totally swap that for some scallion whites. So same deal as the pork, first toss your lamb pieces into some boiling water and blanch for 2 minutes. While if push comes to shove, pre-blanching is kind of optional for the pork, for the lamb you really do want to go that extra step. And now, to fry. As always, first, lang yao. Get your wok piping hot, shut off the heat, add in the oil, here about 1 tablespoon, and give it a swirl to get a nice nonstick surface. Heat on medium-high now, add in your lamb fat. Let that fry and render out for about 2 to 3 minutes, then drop in your lamb pieces. Fry that for about 3 minutes until you're starting to get some mirety goodness going on, then dump in your aromatics. Quick 15-second fry, then toss in the spices, another quick 15-second fry, then add in the chili. Fry that all together for about a minute, then go in with the cumin. Quick note that many recipes out there for Nangbaorou use cumin powder instead here, but we prefer whole seeds. So then, after a quick fry, add enough hot boiled water to just submerge the lamb, together with a tablespoon of light soy sauce to season. Then transfer over to a clay pot, or again, whatever pot you feel like. Bring to a boil, then swap the flame to the lowest heat your stove will go. Cover and simmer for at least 45 minutes. After that time, pick out any spices that you don't want to be munching on and season with a teaspoon of salt. Thicken with a slurry of a teaspoon of cornstarch mixed with a tablespoon of water, and the cumin lamb topping is done. So back to assembly now. No matter what topping you're using, for every 500 grams of noodles, you'll want 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of dark Chinese vinegar, an 1/8 teaspoon salt, a sprinkle of MSG, about a tablespoon's worth of minced dacong or scallion, about 2 cloves of minced garlic, a 1/2 tablespoon of chili powder, and of course, whatever toppings you feel like. Then drizzle over about 4 tablespoons of oil, heat it up to around 190 centigrade, aiming for the chilies and the aromatics, and that's it. Just mix it up and devour.
The pork stew is called Saozi in Chinese. Saozi means small cubes of diced meat. It's kind of like a cultural equivalent of tomato sauce in the Northwest. People would just make a really big batch and just top it on whatever noodles they like. Serve as like a quick homemade sauce. So check out the link in the description box for a detailed recipe. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon. And of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.